Brilliant. Thank you so much, Laura, for joining us for this 5 minute talk. We're really thrilled to have you and to listen to your insights. And we're really looking forward to jump straight in. If I can just ask you to give a very brief introduction to yourself and to the work you do at Boulderton.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you, Lucas, so much for having me. I'm excited to be here as well. My name is Laura McGinnis. I am a principal at Balderton Capital, where I have been working for about 2 years. And prior, I was always operational. So I started my career at Abercrombie and Fitch Corporate. Then I went over to H&M.com, where I was heading up the US online women's business, which meant a mix of product strategy, product marketing, buying quantification, inventory control because we were sitting at the US headquarters. There's a lot of autonomy over running that business, and we kind of acted as a startup in many ways. And then after H&M, I wanted to try the startup side. So first I went to The Wing, which was a co-working space for the advancement of women, to help them launch their new business, which was going to be e-commerce and apparel. So we launched that, and I was able to create and build an entire collection solely with women creators, makers, producers. Also had a great team that I worked with. And after The Wing, I went over to Away, which is a unicorn luggage and travel scale up out of New York City. And I was director of product strategy there, overseeing the luggage business, but was first brought on similarly to The Wing to help them launch new business, which was an apparel business. And unfortunately, the pandemic kind of derailed some of our plans. And so I was promoted to oversee luggage, which was an incredible legacy business. And I learned a lot about, I guess, the power of brand and how important that is to educating consumers, and also the power of growth marketing. We had an incredible CMO. She's a powerhouse, and it was a very quant kind of driven role, and high obsession with like customer psychographics and behaviors, and to encourage repeat, etc. So now at Balderton, I spend time on the early stage team. We've been around for about 20 years, and we're multi-stage, sector agnostic. I spend time on my passion areas a lot of times. So I look at a lot of consumer, e-commerce enablement, climate and energy, and I also spend time on cybersecurity as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, jumping straight into our first question, you started your career and founded a startup in Uruguay. Were there any unique challenges you faced, and what are the opportunities for startups in emerging markets more generally?
Yeah, so I did start, most people don't know that. So I did start my career with a Fulbright grant where I applied to start a nonprofit, a girls soccer program in underrepresented neighborhoods, specifically focused on Afro Uruguayan communities and populations. And so I coached over 100 girls, and Nike actually backed us and sponsored the program, which was great. And yeah, so in terms of the unique challenges, culturally, there were differences. So Uruguay is such a wonderful country in many ways. It's more tech enabled than most countries I've ever been to, in that the literacy rate is one of the highest in the world. They're at 99%. They have a one laptop per child program, which ensures that every single child in Uruguay has a laptop. Their parks, when I was there, this was 2012. So their parks, every single park, public space has free Wi-Fi and internet access. So you've got kids learning to code at a very early age. Um, and if they don't have the means to afford Wi-Fi at their homes, they can do so at their local park. So you'll see a lot of children doing their homework outdoors, which is super inspiring to know that like you're surrounded by this, you're in this radically educated population, and in other ways, so that's on one hand, it's like radically tech
Mm,
enabled. On the other hand, um, I love that there is an element of like, yes, we have computers, yes, we have laptops, but at the same time, we want to spend time with each other, we want to hang out outside. Um, so there's also like more of a traditional approach as well of, um, yes, we have access, but at the same time, like we want to play sports, we want to take some time off of the screen. And it's also an older population. So Uruguay is famous for having a massive elderly population, and so I think that changes the types of businesses that are needed to support that economy. And then you asked about opportunities for startups in emerging markets more generally. It's interesting in that I try not to use the word emerging, and that I think that's a strange way to
Mm.
describe a country's dynamism, and that like emerging according to who? Like who says that I don't
Yeah.
know, the US, UK are emerged. Like I think calling a country emerging implies that we have countries that are emerged. And I think when you look at the UK, we have a cost of living crisis. There's an energy crisis. When you look at the US, like there's, sociopolitical strains and traumas. So I think like in many ways, every country has portions of the country
Mm.
that are emerging. Um, and I wouldn't describe, it's a funny word because I just don't know what does it mean if Uruguay is considered emerging, but US has a lower literacy rate, like who's really
Yeah.
emerging? Like I think that's my argument there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's often sort of countries which are considered as emerging here in the UK and the US that are the home to some of the biggest innovations and some of the most radical new
Yeah.
ideas in terms of startups. So yeah, I mean the label is very much a questionable one. I think that quite nicely moves us on to the next question, which is what are you most excited about in 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I am most excited about spending a bit more time on thesis work, specifically around some of my roots, so consumer and e-commerce enablement. I last year spent a lot of time on climate, energy, and cybersecurity, specifically deep diving LLM security, which I loved, and I'm still, and it's enabled me to I guess, feel more confident, comfortable, develop an expert network so that I can kind of source the best founders and have really, I guess, riveting conversations about the tech that they're building. And then this year, I'm excited. It feels like there's some consumer tailwinds again. I'm starting to see more activity on the consumer side, and I think because of that, um, yeah, I'm excited to spend more time there. And then in terms of kind of the work that I do, I would say Q1 of this year has been the busiest I've been since starting in venture, and that's super encouraging. Like a lot of companies are raising, the quality is super high. I'm feeling like this shift, which, if I'm honest, when I started in 2022, I was a bit worried about. I started in a down market. I think the
Hmm.
fundraising environment was very difficult. Fast forward, and in many ways, there are still difficulties and strains, but a lot of VC funds are sitting on capital. You're seeing a lot of funds across the world actually deploying in Europe specifically, and so I think it's actually a great time to do this type of job. So I'm excited about my thesis work and then also finding some great deals.
That's brilliant and also really encouraging to hear for founders who are building right now. What would you say you think is going to be the biggest sort of trend to emerge in the next 10 years? What are you most excited about in the longer term?
Yeah, good question. So I think I was going to avoid talking about AI, but I guess I have to
How can you?
say something about it. But I think I know I was just like I feel like there's too many podcasts right now and on AI, so I was going to avoid it. But I think yeah, everyone's talking about AI and its impact. I think I'm excited about seeing the speed up of the like innovation adoption curve. I think AI plus fintech, AI plus health, AI plus consumer, these are all areas that I think every fund right now is deep diving, like the intersection of generative AI specifically with another subsector. I think it's going to transform every sector as we know it. And it already was. So it's not like it's new, but I think what's happened is, yeah, there's finally like a democratization of AI. There's more AI literacy. And so I'm excited to see, excited and maybe part of me is scared to see what the future holds for some of these innovations and what types of new tech and good and bad come out of it. I mentioned that I spend a lot of time on LLM security,
Mm.
and I think there are new types of malware that are faster and can disseminate in like much higher volumes than ever seen before. And I think that's super scary. But at the same time, meeting founders who are coming up with security solutions that are just as fast and can handle just as high of volumes, like Calypso, like Hera, are super inspiring. And so I feel like there are going to be challenges that come out of this, but also exciting innovation. So that's maybe what I'm most excited about for the next 10 years.
That's really interesting and great to hear some optimism there as well. On a different note, I wanted to ask you, you're passionate and have worked with a lot of different projects in youth education. What would you say is the role of education in driving entrepreneurship and innovation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, as mentioned, I started my career in youth education. And throughout my life, I had started a few businesses at home in my small town of Park Ridge, Illinois, in the space as well. And I am incredibly passionate about it. And again, back to what am I most excited about in the next 10 years? We're seeing like mobile learning, like children are teaching themselves through their phones. Like self learning is a huge theme. And I think that's, again, everyone's nervous about screen time, of course. And I want to think more about, the impact of screen time. But at the same time, there's something very interesting about this concept of self teaching. You're seeing more, I think it was Google removed their requirement to have a university degree to work for them.
Hmm.
And I think that's badass. And I'm curious about what will happen to the university system as we see this increase of self teaching. I think the other component that's quite interesting that pertains to youth education is the we'll call it the enterprisation of families. So there is a lot of family related tech to help families run even more smoothly, and some of that tech is tech to help organize uh, schedules, kids' lives, language learning, learning in general. And I'm keen to see what this becomes and how much responsibility is on parents to educate, or how much responsibility is on parents to fund apps and new tech for their kids to keep up in this current landscape. Because I think, yeah, we're in this massive educational shift that I think is quite interesting, but I don't know fully what's to come. But yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And I mean, moving on to the next question, you see so many different pitch decks in your job and meet so many founders, and you mentioned a few of them before. Could you tell us a memorable recent encounter with a founder or a team or an idea, and why that stuck in your
Yeah.
mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give you a fresh example, and that yesterday I spent 24 hours in Dublin visiting the like founder ecosystem there, and my colleague Rob Moffat and I um, co-hosted a dinner with Dogpatch Labs, an accelerator up in Dublin, with Menno, and it was great. We brought together about 30-ish founders in the landscape, and that was easily my most memorable encounter in the last week. And we did something similar in Amsterdam, where maybe 70 founders, we co-hosted Balderton and Keen Ventures, a founder meetup. And it and they're both extremely well attended, and I'll focus on Dublin, but it was great to see these ecosystems outside of big cities like London and Paris and Berlin. That we've seen a ton of startups come out of those three cities in Europe in the last few years, and it's great to see hear about new cities also gaining impact, meeting angels that are super active, meeting founders that know how to fundraise and who to tap into, and just better understanding like what are the themes of today in Dublin. And in Dublin, at least, we invited a ton of founders in AI. I had no idea that there was so much vibrancy in artificial intelligence and deep tech. up there, but there is, and I
Mm.
think that was exciting to see, and that I think, yeah, you just most people aren't talking about what's going on in Dublin, and I hosted an AI dinner in Edinburgh back in January, and with colleagues Savesh and James at Boulderton, and again, it was an AI themed dinner with 30 founders, and it's so cool to see talent outside the major cities doing extremely progressive things, also getting backing, also having dynamic discussions, expanding into the US while having a headquarters in Dublin, Edinburgh. It's possible. So I think that was maybe the most memorable is so far this year, like hosting dinners in what we can maybe call like second cities outside of the major cities, and seeing how much startup energy and entrepreneurship there still is.
That's really cool to hear, and some some inspiration for where to run some of our next events, perhaps. Thank you so much, Laura, for
Yeah,
joining us. It's been an
absolutely.
absolute pleasure to speak to you and to listen to your insights on these questions. We're really, really happy to have had you. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your time, Lucas.